Hi, this is lesson 4.7. This is all about expanding democracy during period 4, which is 1800 to 1848. Let's take a look at the learning objective. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain the causes and effects of the expansion of participatory democracy. So it's cause and effect. What caused participatory democracy to occur? What are the effects? There is just one key concept for this one, explaining, it's two parts though, how the nation's transition was achieved and why it was accompanied by the growth of political parties. So let's take a look to where we've come so far. We're going to rewind. One of the founding principles of the American Revolution was no taxation without representation. It demands that the government officials who tax the people must come from among the people, not way over there in England. So for most of the early history of the United States, both the voters and the elected representatives were from the elite, the economic elite, the social elite, because status required property ownership to vote. No property, you are not allowed to vote. Second of all, taxes, if you remember Alexander Hamilton's whiskey tax, were being charged to working class people who begin to demand that they are represented in the legislatures. So we have a history of not really wanting to pay our taxes unless we have some say, and feeling that there is a disproportionate tax burden on the working class. So during this market revolution time period, during the 1820s, there is a movement across the United States. It is called the Participatory Democracy Movement. What that means is that white men over the age of 21 can vote, regardless of property ownership. It is very, very democratic, but not in today's terms. Just the idea that all white men could vote is very much a big change. Since the Republican Party divided along class lines, there was really no opposition. The working and middle class Republicans supported the new democracy movement, and the upper class opposed it. So it really wasn't a political thing as much it was an economic thing. The upper class elite opposed it, fearing that if working class people voted, it would lead to corruption, anarchy, violence. So what begins to happen is the election of 1824 leads to a permanent split in the Republican Party. So one party splits based on economic lines. So what happens? In the election of 1824, Andrew Jackson wins the popular vote for the presidency, while John Quincy Adams, who was the candidate of the elites, comes in second. However, Jackson fails to win a majority in the Electoral College. So the final decision goes to the House of Representatives. So Electoral College vote, he did not have a majority, so it went to the House. Republican elites are afraid that Jackson is going to destroy the nation. So they decide to throw their support, because of the influence of the Speaker of the House, Henry Clay, they throw their support behind John Quincy Adams. Remember, he was an elite from Massachusetts, son of the second president, John Adams. So John Quincy Adams was elected president, even though Jackson had won the popular vote. That is something that in the year 2020 happens on occasion, but this was the first time it had ever happened. So Jackson and his allies, his followers, declare that this was a corrupt bargain, that something shady went down in the House of Representatives, especially after John Quincy Adams names Henry Clay as the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State had long been a position that was seen as a stepping stone. John Quincy Adams was James Monroe's Secretary of State. James Monroe was James Madison's Secretary of State. James Madison was Thomas Jefferson's, and you get what I mean. So you see that this had to have been a corrupt bargain. Jackson and his followers are not going to sit by and let this happen. They organize a new political party called the Democratic Party. It is a party of the common man. It is a party of poor farmers, working class people. And this is called the Democratic Party because they saw themselves as being more democratic. This comes about at the same time that there is this movement of participatory democracy sweeping through nation. More and more states had already been abolishing that property requirement. So the timing here is everything, and the timing is perfect. So throughout the next 4 years, Jackson and the Democrats get a state voting campaign, and they work tirelessly to get the property requirements taken away from a majority of the states. They see this as a path to power. They know that if the common man is allowed to vote, their man, Andrew Jackson, will be elected. So the term common man is what the elites refer to as the working class people. It was a negative term. The word common means you are base, you are of a lower stature than the elite. Jackson, however, mistook the insult and he uses it to his advantage. He brands himself as the candidate for the common man, which he means as hardworking, hard scrabble people who have been ignored by the elites for too long. So we can see how the term common has changed because of this. And in the year 1828, in the presidential election, Jackson is now supported by a majority of these common men. He and his party deliver a devastating defeat to John Quincy Adams, thus beginning an era known as the Age of Jackson or Jacksonian democracy. He gets his own age named after him because he was that much of a force of nature. So hopefully you will be able to explain the causes, what caused the rise of participatory democracy and the effects of this expansion of the franchise.